Welcome to Point Me to a Profession. Have you considered a job that's outdoors, very social, where you get to teach as well as improve your own aptitude? If this sounds like something fun for you, we are kicking off this series with what it's like to be a ski instructor. And for you snowboarder enthusiasts out there, this will also be relevant as there are many parts of the job that do overlap. This interview is based on experiences in the US, and it goes without saying that experiences, culture, pay, and scheduling will vary from country to country as well as resort to resort. So do bear that in mind as you're listening. We are joined by Sebastian Crain, who has worked as an instructor, supervisor, and trainer in ski school for 6 years.
There's nothing better than just getting to connect with people all day long while also doing literally my favorite thing to do.
Thank you very much for joining me today, Sebastian.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start with, what are you responsible for as a ski instructor? What are the core tasks that you have in this role?
Yes. It depends. Okay, so if you're at a really big resort, you are more likely to have a very particular job. I came in first year pro. I just taught adult group lessons. That's what I did. If you are at a smaller resort, you might teach everything. Now, one day I will be holding hands with a 4-year-old on the bunny slope. And then the next day I'm running a clinic on steeps and deeps on double black terrain with other pros. So when it comes down to just working as a ski instructor is following some semblance of a standard teaching guidelines, so to speak. First we start by doing this, then we teach them how to do that. But really when it comes down to it, you can go in a million different ways. And if you're with a bunch of adults, right, you can speak in a certain way. If you're with kids, you speak in a certain way, and you kind of tailor the way that you teach to who it is that you have. If I'm given, I don't know, 5 adults who are all surgeons, I will talk to them like I'm talking to you right now. If I'm given 5 kids who are 6, it's going to be an absolutely different situation, and it's a lot more just playing with them rather than actually teaching them. And you're kind of hiding the teaching behind the play.
It sounds like one of the key things that you're highlighting is that you're responsible for teaching the student in the way that's best suited for them, either if it's based on their age, their interest, their learning style, and each student is unique.
That's the biggest thing that differentiates a really good pro, a really good instructor, from somebody who sucks at teaching people how to ski. Being able to change the way that you instruct and change the way that you interact with somebody based on who they are, not who you are.
And it's not always the same progression for each person. Someone might be struggling in a specific area, say, or someone might want a specific focus. If it's, hey, I want to learn moguls today, or I want to sharpen my turn, specific
Yeah.
to what they want as well. And the progression is different for each person. You can't just go, this is how you turn, now this is how you ski on ski for terrain, right?
Yeah, right. Well, and it's funny because when it comes to skiing, physics don't change, but every single day is like a puzzle. I have this person here who learned how to ski 15 years ago. She had a knee replacement 7 years ago. She hasn't really skied in 3 years. Last time she was on blues, but today it's a little icy. So, but she's also a little nervous. And, and it's and she wants to, be able to ski blacks with her kid, and we have 3 hours. Okay, go.
That's a really, I think, interesting example of the different obstacles and niche requirements. You brought up a lot of different things in that one example of the variables that happen in each lesson. So yeah, double back diamonds with her 3-year-old with
Yeah,
a knee
no,
replacement. Yeah.
yeah.
So how did you start as a ski instructor?
I just like, okay, so I was going to go to grad school before, decided not to do it. And I'm like, well, I can't just go back to what I was doing for work before. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to apply to be a ski instructor at like 5 different resorts. Literally just went online, put in applications at 5 different resorts. All resorts were like, yeah, you can come teach here. I was like, sweet. And then I just found the place that had employee housing and I went there. That was literally how I started because I was like 26 and could fit all of my belongings in my car. And that's honestly the way that a lot of people get started is they just show up. Like literally, you just put in an application, you find housing, and you show up.
I think that's like that for a lot of the ski industry, the ski and snowboard industry, is that yeah, people are looking for a change or looking for something that isn't an office job perhaps,
Yeah.
and want to get out there and meet other like-minded people.
Mhm.
And it's a different living location as well for a lot of people. You're living in a mountain town a lot of the time,
Yeah.
so it can be very attractive to people.
Yeah. I mean, it's a huge, huge shift. And honestly, dude, it felt like going to college. Like I went to college, but it felt like going to college again. Like I
Especially
showed
with the
up.
employee housing part as well.
Oh my God. I was like sharing a room with somebody. I was like just goofing around and all. It literally, it felt like we're like meeting people or, it was all clicky and you had like your groups and this and that. And that's what's going to happen when you're at like a big resort. But if you go to a smaller resort, like it depends on the resort you go to.
Yeah.
'Cause, like a lot of places, like especially on the East Coast, there's a resort within 20, 30 minutes of just like regular suburbs. And you're like, oh yeah, there's a resort that's like around the corner. There's like a little hill. I can go teach there, and you're going to teach like little 30-minute lessons, but you're going to experience like a totally different vibe. So it depends on where you go. Like you can go to these little resorts and just like, hey, I'm just going to work here on the weekends, and it's just kind of like a little gig. Or you can truly make it your lifestyle, which is what a lot of folks do out west.
Yeah, absolutely. So how many years have you been in this profession for?
I started in 2018 and now it's 2024, so 6 years, I guess. I've done 6 full-time seasons teaching skiing. Well, one season working in like kind of like supervisory stuff, and then 5 years straight up like teaching slash training. So yeah,
Can you describe an average day, so like a general overview?
yeah. You get there usually around, I don't know, maybe 8. A lot of times you just like go to lineup, or you might know who you're going to be teaching. If you're teaching private lessons, you'll probably have their information already in your phone on your instructor app or whatever. If it's a group lesson, you don't know who you're going to be teaching until the supervisor assigns you a lesson. So you go to like what's called lineup, and you just stand around and you hang out and you greet guests and you kind of put them in the spots they need to be in. And then you end up getting a lesson and off you go. And usually, if it's a group lesson, you don't necessarily know what level they're going to be. Even if it's a private lesson, you don't necessarily know what level they're going to be if you've never skied with them before. Here are 5 people who are between the age of 7 and 14 who can ski greens, but they can't ski blues. Go have fun. And then from there, you figure it out. You're like, okay, well, what does everybody like to do? How can I get these people to connect with each other? How can I get the kids to engage? This kid's not really stoked on skiing. How do I make sure that these people are having a good time? But then physically, like you don't want to take them anywhere that every single person cannot ski. One kid's like, oh, I love to ski on this chairlift. And I'm like, okay, cool. We're going to go ski on this easier chairlift, and I'm going to make sure that you're able to actually ski it and not just survive it. And then, so, maybe they're all green skiers, but we're going to start on like a really small slope, and I'm just going to make sure that they're all actually able to ski, right? That they can all actually, they can turn and they can stop. And then, I might take them up a green run. And then at that point, insofar as everybody is safe, because, we don't want to take anybody anywhere that they cannot effectively ski safely. If I'm going to take somebody somewhere that they cannot effectively ski safely, that's a fault on me and I'm putting somebody in danger. And that is a hard, hard stop. And like, that's one of the things that, as a trainer, we really, really try to mitigate is risk. I mean, obviously there's risk, but we really try to mitigate the risk for injury. So that's kind of like the basic gist is you get everybody, you make sure everybody's happy together throughout the day, doing what you can to, kind of grease the social wheels. But then also you're making sure that everybody's safe. And so then once they are on terrain and they're happy there and they're learning, and then they're like really becoming autonomous on that terrain, at that point we say, okay, what do you think about maybe moving to this other terrain that's a little bit steeper, so on and so forth. So that's kind of the gist of it. And then at the end of the day, hopefully we kept everybody safe and everybody had fun. Ideally, we learned something. And then at that point, we say, okay, this is my information. If you want to get back together with me and ski again, here's my phone number, here's my email, blah, blah, blah. And then at that point, that's kind of when you start trying to get return clients. As a ski instructor, at every resort you go to, you get paid more if somebody requests to ski with you. Some resorts only pay you like $8 an hour more. Some resorts give you double pay. So, if you can get request lessons, then that then is going to lead you to make more money.
To add to that, some resorts also, it'll be like a tally. So for how many requests you get, then there's pay increases. So it's like cumulative, and then you have like a higher base rate as well. So it really is variable based on the ski resort.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So essentially, you either have two lessons, right? So the AM and the PM, or you can have a full day where you'll take, and which can be very long for beginners, I feel like.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Or for young kids. But it's either or. And with lineup, you're not always guaranteed a lesson, are you? They try their best as the resort, but if there's not enough people, or sometimes there's walk-ups, which is why there are extra staff members around, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I just like forget that people get sent home.
That's because you're at a higher certificate level than someone who's just starting. You've earned your right to get lessons, basically, because you're trained higher, which we can get into later about sort of the career progression. But an average day as a new person that's instructing might mean that they do get a lesson or they don't. Most of the time, you hopefully will.
Right.
But that's why you'll turn up to the morning lineup. And if you don't get a lesson, you'll turn up to the PM lineup.
Yeah.
And if you don't have one then you'll get cut. So pay can be a question as well in this profession, how much you rely on it, and if you need like a second job as well. And with an example that happened this past year is if there's not enough snow, people aren't really coming to the mountain, maybe all the runs aren't open, and there's just not as many lessons going around.
Yeah, like there's just not as much work. There's not as many people coming. Yeah, I mean, it totally depends on the economy because skiing isn't cheap, and skiing is like an extra thing. And if people aren't making a lot of money, they're not going to spend freaking $300 to go skiing for a day.
For sure. What do you enjoy about being a ski instructor? I know there must be a lot of things. If you had to point out a couple of things that you enjoy most or your favorite thing.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like tying in the pay thing. I'm going to keep doing it no matter how much I get paid. Obviously I want to make more money and I'm going to like follow the money, but I do it because literally there's nothing that makes me feel better than teaching skiing. I think about it all the time. I've been taking like antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication since I was in my early 20s, and because I've struggled with all of the things that most Americans seem to struggle with. And even though it's not like I go out every day and I'm like, oh my God, I'm just exploding with happiness when I'm teaching. Like sometimes like I go out and like it kind of sucks. But like there's nothing that in aggregate that I have found yet. Maybe I'll find something else. Who knows? That gives me a greater sense of meaning than being able to provide the experience of skiing with as many people as I possibly can, and to be skiing and to be outside and to be at elevation and in the mountains and like working towards something and playing and exercising. I'm a super extroverted, socially adaptable human, and I recognize that not all people are like that. So if people would prefer to like not be working with people all day, like don't be a ski instructor. But I think that for people who like humans and are very, I guess, anthropocentric, I think that's a word. There's like nothing better than just getting to connect with people all day long while also doing like literally my favorite thing to do. I would prefer to go teach a lesson than I usually would to just go free ski because I enjoy teaching so much.
I think your passion and your energy for skiing and instructing and teaching and supervising and training does really show. So it's great that you found a job that really suits you. And like you said, for someone who does a lot of inside jobs, being outside, if you find a job that's outside, that can really shift mood as well. Or like you said, being around people, it's finding something that suits you.
Yeah.
I think another fun thing about working in a ski resort or working in a ski instructor is, you've got the pass, you can ski when you want, but you learn how to ski better. Like you don't have to be an amazing teacher to start. You can take clinics, and that's one of the things that you do as a trainer. And that, like, every day you're improving your skiing. You don't have to be the best skier to start being a ski instructor.
Yeah, no, I sucked at skiing when I first started. Well, like, okay, okay, I sucked, but like I sucked at like a decently high level, but now I suck at a much higher level.
And
Um,
but that you realize what you were doing wrong as you're skiing and you're learning as a ski
yeah,
instructor. You're more paying more attention to the fine tuning rather than skiing for fun. You're like,
right. Like your mind expands so much when you become a ski instructor. You start learning so much. I have so far to go.
one of the things with it, I guess, like many careers or skills, is that the more you start learning about it, the more you realize there is to learn.
Oh God,
And I think all of the top level ski instructors, no one will say, I've learned everything there is to learn about skiing. Just like any professional
yeah,
athlete, they're always in training with their coach, they're always learning more. It's, from a base level standpoint, you might just think, okay, I have to make a turn and go down safely down the hill. But when you break that turn down into all the components and like the physics that you were talking about earlier and where your body position is, where your center of mass is, there is so much more, the different rotations in the whole body,
yeah.
there is so much more to it than I think anyone would think going into it.
Oh yeah. I mean, you can suck at skiing and be a really good instructor.
All that.
Like, I mean, really, maybe your demos aren't gonna be the best, but you can I mean, I don't know, NFL coaches aren't out there throwing the
Yeah.
ball, they're out there, like, telling somebody how to throw the ball, or not maybe telling them how to throw the ball, but everything else that goes into it. People are like, "Oh, well, I'm not that good at skiing." It doesn't matter. If you are able to have an open mind
Yeah.
and you can walk in and say, "Hey, I'm here to learn." Holy cow, dude, as a trainer, when someone just wants to learn, like that's so much fun.
And if you're not the most confident of skiers and maybe you feel best on blues or something like that, I mean,
Yeah.
we knew someone who was a snowboarder and was 4 days into their
Oh, that's
skiing,
right.
yeah, their skiing, and then they were training to be in ski instructor. I mean, that was a crossover of skills, but he was a super engaging person, and
Oh,
you could
yeah.
tell that he was really great with the people in his lesson, and he picked it up. He picked up skiing fast. And
Yeah.
if you're not an advanced skier, you won't be teaching advanced people. When you
No.
start
Yeah.
out, everyone starts with beginners. You'll be doing beginners a lot. Okay, so we have mentioned some challenges. What is something that you found challenging that perhaps you didn't expect when you became a ski instructor or a trainer?
Um, I guess when I started, one of the things that I recognized was like even though there's a pretty clear path through certifications. There's a relatively clear path through management. No one's gonna say, okay, this is your pathway. I don't know, like, and I don't mean to like this gets like a little touchy because like, it comes down to what people want to do with their lives. Some people just want to live in a ski town and be an instructor for forever. And that's awesome. And you want to landscape in the summer, and like that's what people do, and that's cool. And you can make enough money doing that, and that's awesome. Um, but I was like, I want to push for more. And I want a year-round position. I want to be able to make enough money that I can get a loan to buy a house. And I guess so. Yeah, I guess like the thing that I recognized was a challenge, but I quickly worked to overcome was the fact that nobody is going to push you to grow in the industry except for yourself.
You really have to be like a self-starter, right? You have to go to the clinics. Sometimes the clinics aren't paid for. You have to, and you've done like a lot of extra reading. You have to take advantage of the training that's there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you have to take advantage of training. You have to take advantage of like learning how to do things. I remember having a conversation with my trainer at my exam a few years ago when I was finally finishing my level 2, and he was like, "Sebastian, you have to figure out, do you want to be in management or do you want to go the training route?" And he's like, "It's really hard to do both." And I thought really hard about it, and I'm like, "Okay, I'm going to go the training route until I get my level 3 and my RMT, and then I want to move into management."
And there are people who will start going into sort of more managerial roles and be like, actually, what I really loved about ski instructing was ski instructing,
Yeah,
and go back to being a ski instructor.
that's
And
what I did. Yeah.
that is a beautiful segue into what does career progression look like, because there are different routes you can go. As you've mentioned, you can hone in your certifications, and maybe we can briefly go over what the certifications are, or you can take more managerial roles throughout the industry. Would you be able to paint an outline?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It totally depends on the resort that you're at. So what that looks like certification wise, the reason why people do that is to be able to make more money. Resorts pay you more, and that just kind of helps your cause to get hired and to be hired into a particular position, such as how I was hired into a trainer role. So those are really, 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 really helpful. Um, you can go further. You can go beyond your level 3, right? Becoming an examiner or becoming a member of the education staff or the development team on the East Coast. But then in regards to management, that's kind of what I would like to shift into in the coming years, as somebody who needs to be able to put a little bit more money on paper in order to get like a home loan. So that's one of the big reasons why people move into supervisory stuff. And I think in order to move into that realm, what happens is a lot of times that people become an instructor and they're like, cool, I'm going to be a ski instructor, da, da, da. And then they're going to move into, I'm going to get a promotion and be a supervisor. And all of a sudden they're making less money. Sometimes you take a pay cut moving into management.
Yeah.
And so that is one of the big issues why people don't like moving from instructing into supervising, because we haven't even talked about tips. And the bottom line is that, a lot of times like a quarter of your income comes from tips. And, so all of a sudden you're like, yeah, you make 30 bucks an hour teaching skiing, and oh, well, cool, I make $33 an hour as a coordinator, but you're not getting those tips. Like all of a sudden you're getting a pay cut.
And to be clear, the $30 an hour isn't for someone who's starting.
No, I
As a
mean,
as and also you're getting paid for just the hours that you're teaching. So sometimes that could be, if you only have a morning lesson, that might just be 2 hours,
totally.
or
Yeah.
it could be 3 hours, like in your whole day of what you're getting paid. And, that client may or may not tip, which is totally up to them.
Yeah.
So you know, money is a thing that you have to think about in this profession, because it can be difficult at times, or it can be really great at times. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can show up and make 15 bucks, or I can show up and make 700 bucks. It just depends on the day, but that's another reason why people like to move into management, and it is because it's more consistent.
More stability, salary.
Yeah.
You've mentioned sort of broadly things that you've learned from skiing. Would you say there's a skill or something you've noticed about yourself that you've matured from the role?
Um yeah, I would say like I think we're like being a self-starter is huge. I mean, before I started teaching skiing, I was substitute teaching and delivering pizzas, and I made like enough money doing it. Surprisingly, like delivering food pays kind of surprisingly well, but I was just not really moving forward. And when I started teaching when I was 26, um, that's when I really was like, okay, I see something that I can really grab a hold of and like be this. And I want to do it regardless of the money. Whereas before I would go to work to make money. Now I go to work because I love doing what I'm doing. Um,
That's really great. And I hope everyone can find a job like that out there for them. So, what advice would you give to someone who wants to pursue ski instructing?
yeah, just show up, dude. Yeah, there's going to be plenty of excuses for not doing it. Like, oh, I'm not going to make as much money. Oh, I have to move. Oh, but it's cold. Oh, I have to buy skis. Just show up and it will like manifest and it will happen. And you'll talk to people and they'll be like, oh, yeah, hey, I've got a pair of skis you can buy. And hey, if anybody wants to do this, come join it. And like, you'll get pulled in. It's such an incredibly social thing that if you're nervous about it, everybody else in your little training group is also going to be very nervous, and everybody else is going to be completely clueless. And that's the beautiful thing about teaching skiing is that it's like going to college. Like you show up and you figure it out.
Yeah, you don't need to, like we said before, need to be the best skier. You'll
No,
learn a lot of skills. And with equipment, a lot of resorts will give you rental equipment. You don't need a lot to start it. In terms of skills, qualifications, or equipment,
yeah,
you just need the attitude that you want to do it, and you can learn, like Sebastian said, a lot while you're there.
yeah, that's it. You can figure it out.
Well, thank you. You've been such a wealth of knowledge. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. This has been fun.
Sebastian has an Instagram page, so you can follow him there.
Yeah, if anybody wants to talk about skiing or becoming an instructor, um, or if they just want to go skiing, hit me up.
You can find the link in the description. You can follow the Point Me to a Profession social media pages for more content and alerts to new job interviews, or you can visit the website for more episodes and content. If you have specific questions about working in ski and ride school, or if you want to hear about other jobs at ski resorts or other seasonal locations, do let me know so we can get them in some upcoming episodes. In the next episode, we are joined by a solicitor and we'll find out what it's like to join a law firm. Until next time.